The corridor smelled like clean metal and cold light, the kind of smell that never left your clothes once you worked a spaceport long enough. And Jalen Voss had worked Port Meridian long enough to forget what real air tasted like. He pushed his mop cart past the polished wall panels, past the vertical light ribs that ran like glowing veins from floor to ceiling, past security cameras that watched without blinking. And he kept his head down the way janitors learned to do if they wanted to keep their job and their bones. Port Meridian was a city with no sky, 1,000 ships docking and undocking every day, 1,000,000 passengers rushing like water through the arteries of the station, and in the middle of all of it, Jalen was a shadow in gray workwear, a man you saw only when you wanted to ignore him, until he heard the sound. Not an alarm, not a shout, not a rushing crowd. A small sound, like a breath caught in a throat, like a child trying not to cry. Jalen stopped. The corridor ahead was one of the cleanest on the station, a sterile passage leading toward the high-security transit ring. No vendors, no benches, no reason for anyone to linger, just the bright tunnel that narrowed into a white glow in the distance. His boots squeaked softly as he stepped closer to the wall seam where the sound came from. Another tiny sound, a soft hiccup of fear. Jalen leaned down, set his mop handle against the cart, and pressed his fingers to the panel joint. The maintenance latch was there, hidden, because the station loved hiding things, like it loved hiding people. He slid the latch open, and the panel gave with a quiet hiss. Behind it was a maintenance crawl cavity, narrow, dusty, and dark. And in that dark, two huge eyes stared back at him, glossy and wide, with pale irises that caught the corridor light like moonlit water. Jalen's throat tightened. A child, not human, small, lavender-skinned, head too large and smooth to be anything but extraterrestrial, hairless, delicate, and trembling, pressed against the cold metal ribs inside the cavity like she had been folded there and forgotten. She held something between her hands, a small sphere of electric blue light, not quite solid, not quite flame. It hovered and pulsed as if it had a heartbeat of its own. Jalen whispered, "Careful, because in a place like this, volume was a weapon. Hey, it's okay. I'm not going to hurt you. I'm just the cleaning guy." The child's gaze flicked to his uniform, then back to his face, then to the light in her hands. She looked like she had been taught to fear uniforms, any uniform, even the ones with stains and mop water. Jalen eased down to one knee, so his eyes were level with hers, the way his mother had told him to do when he was small and scared of thunder. He raised his empty hand slowly, palm open. "You're lost, aren't you?" he said. "You're hiding." The child's lower lip quivered, and for a moment Jalen thought she might bolt deeper into the crawl cavity, but there was nowhere deeper to go, only metal, wires, and a dead end. Then he saw the bracelets on her left wrist. Several small, colorful bands, bright against her lavender skin, and one bracelet that did not belong with the others. A thin metallic ring, matte black, too precise to be a toy, with a tiny embedded display that glowed faintly. The display flickered, and a number appeared. 005941. Jalen stared, his breath caught. The numbers ticked. 005940. 005939. A countdown. He didn't know what kind. He didn't know what it meant, but every part of his survival instinct screamed the same message. This is not a child's jewelry. This is a device, and it is running out. Jalen's voice dropped even lower, almost a breath. "What is that, little one? What did they put on you?" The child's gaze snapped to the bracelet, and she made a small sound like a warning. Her hands tightened around the blue sphere, and it flared brighter, casting rippling light across her face, across the inside walls of the cavity, across Jalen's tattoos as if the ink was swimming. Jalen held still. Okay, I won't touch it. I won't, I promise." The child blinked slowly, then lifted her eyes to his again, and in that moment he saw something that didn't belong in a toddler's face. Understanding. Not full, not adult, but sharp and urgent, like someone had forced fear to grow up fast inside her. Jalen glanced down the corridor. No one nearby, just the hum of the lights and the distant whisper of station ventilation. But Port Meridian was never empty for long. He leaned closer, careful not to block her exit, though she had none. "Listen," he said, "I can help you, but we can't stay here, not with that thing counting down. Do you understand me?" The child's mouth opened as if to speak, then closed again. Her throat moved like she swallowed something heavy. Then she made a sound, not a word, but a pattern of tones that seemed to vibrate the air. Jalen felt it in his teeth, like a low note from a bass speaker, like the station itself answered her. The bracelet display flickered again, as if reacting to her sound. 005857. 005856. Jalen's heart pounded. Whatever the device was, it was listening. He swallowed, forced his voice steady. All right, little one. I'm going to move this panel wider, and I want you to come out slowly. Okay? No sudden moves. I'm not security. I'm not one of them. He gently pulled the maintenance panel further open. The hinge squealed faintly. The child flinched, but she didn't retreat. The blue sphere dimmed to a steady glow, hovering between her cupped hands. Jalen extended his index finger toward the light, not touching, just pointing like a question. Is that yours? He asked. Can you make that? The child looked at the light, then at his finger, then nodded once, small, quick, as if nodding was dangerous. Then she shifted her knees, scooted forward, and climbed out of the cavity with a careful grace, her dress and straps catching the light, her bracelets chiming softly. She stood in the corridor, tiny under the towering walls, and the station's brightness made her lavender skin look almost luminous. Jalen stayed kneeling. Up close, he saw faint marks on her wrist beneath the black bracelet, pressure lines, bruising, like it had been tightened and locked. He felt a surge of anger, so hot it made his eyes sting. Somebody did this to you. The child's eyes tracked the corridor again, scanning, listening. Then she pressed the blue sphere closer to her chest, and it became a dim glow between her fingers, like a secret she could hide if she needed to. Jalen glanced again toward the white glow at the end of the corridor, the transit ring beyond that, where security increased, where people vanished into customs tunnels and never came back if they didn't have the right papers. He knew the station layout better than most, because janitors did. Janitors saw everything. They cleaned everything. They were allowed everywhere, and they were invisible everywhere. He whispered, "What's your name, little one?" The child hesitated, then touched her own chest lightly. A sound came from her, soft and musical. Jalen tried to repeat it, and failed. His mouth couldn't shape it. She watched him struggle, then made a small motion with her fingers, like writing in air. Jalen blinked, then realized she was tracing letters from his language, slowly, clumsily, like she had learned them from overhearing announcements. S-A-I-R-A. Syra, Jalen breathed. The child nodded. Syra. Jalen's chest tightened again. Okay, Syra, he said. I'm Jalen. I clean floors, I fix spills, and I know how to get through this station without anyone noticing. But we have to move now. He said the last word louder than he meant to, and Syra startled. The blue glow flickered. The countdown continued on her wrist. 005712. Jalen rose slowly, keeping his movements calm. He looked down at his cart, a battered cleaning cart with compartments, towels, chemical bottles, spare gloves, and a large bin for linen, the kind of cart no one questioned. He had hidden things in it before: tools, ration packs, contraband spare parts. Nothing living, never a child. He looked back at Cyrus' wide eyes, and he saw the choice he could make in the next 5 seconds. Walk away, keep his job, keep his quiet, keep breathing. Or step into something that would tear his life apart, and maybe save hers, or maybe get them both killed. Jalen inhaled, and the air tasted like metal and decision. He lowered his voice until it was a promise. Syra, I'm going to hide you in the linen bin. It's clean, it's safe. I'll keep a towel over you so nobody sees. And if you feel scared, you hold that blue light tight. But don't let it flare unless you have TO. Do you understand me? Syra stared at the bin, then at him. Her eyes shimmered, and for a second Jalen thought she might cry. Then she nodded once, like a soldier nodding to a mission. Jalen flipped open the bin lid, pulled out fresh folded station towels, and made a nest at the bottom. He held his hand out. Syra stepped closer, and her small lavender fingers touched his palm. They were cool, not cold, but different, like skin that did not come from Earth. Jalen lifted her gently, careful with her limbs, careful with the bracelets, careful with the unknown device counting down on her wrist. Syra climbed into the bin without resistance, curling into a tight ball like she had practiced being small. Jalen draped towels over her, leaving a tiny gap for air, and the faint blue glow dimmed beneath the fabric like a star under clouds. He closed the lid softly, not snapping it, not making noise. Then he gripped the cart handle and started walking. He pushed the cart forward, steady pace, janitor pace, the pace of someone who belonged. The corridor lights reflected off the polished floor. The station hummed with distant life. Jalen's heart pounded like a drum in his ears. He took the next intersection toward Maintenance Spine C, a service artery that ran behind the public corridors, a place where cameras were fewer and workers were more likely to look away. He passed a security camera and forced his face into boredom, the mask he wore every day. He turned another corner, and his stomach dropped. Two port security officers stood ahead, talking, their uniforms sharp, their sidearms visible, their eyes scanning for trouble the way predators scan grass for movement. Jalen's cartwheels squeaked once, and he hated the sound. He did not stop. He did what janitors always did. He became smaller. He lowered his gaze. He pushed the cart as if he could slide right past like air. One officer looked at him. "Hey, you," the officer said. Jalen felt his blood turn to ice, but his face stayed dull. "Yeah, sir," Jalen said. "You see a kid run through here?" the officer asked. "Little, weird looking, not human." Jalen kept his eyes low, kept his voice steady. "No, sir, just cleaning, sir." The officer stepped closer, and Jalen smelled the officer's cologne over the sterile air, smelled authority, smelled danger. The officer's gaze flicked to the cart bin, the linen lid, the exact place Syra was curled beneath towels holding a blue light and a black bracelet that was ticking down. Jalen's mouth went dry. The officer reached out, fingers toward the lid. Jalen's brain screamed, "Move!" but his body stayed still because sudden movement was guilt. Then Jalen did the one thing he had learned from years of being invisible. He used invisibility as a weapon. He sighed like an exhausted worker, like a man who had been yelled at all day. "Sir," Jalen said, careful not to sound annoyed, but letting a hint of weariness leak out. "You want me to open it? You want to smell chemical linen and wet towels? Because I just cleaned a vomit spill on deck 7, and this bin is where the towels go." The officer paused. The other officer snorted. "Don't, man," he said. "I'm not smelling that." The first officer hesitated, his pride at war with his comfort. Then he waved Jalen off. "Fine, move along, but keep your eyes open. We're on lock search. Missing minor, station-wide alert." Jalen nodded, pushed the cart forward. He did not speed up. He did not run. He walked the same pace until he turned the next corner and the officers were out of sight. Then he exhaled so hard his chest hurt. He whispered without moving his lips, so only the cart would hear. "Syra, stay quiet. Please stay quiet." The cart rolled into Maintenance Spine C, where the walls were rougher, the lights dimmer, and the air smelled of coolant and grease instead of polished sterility. Here, workers passed without greeting, eyes tired, minds on their own survival. Jalen took a side corridor toward an old service alcove, one he knew was rarely used. He stopped, listened, then opened the linen bin just enough to peek. Syra's eyes looked up at him from between towels, wide and shining. The blue sphere glowed softly in her hands. The bracelet display was visible now. 005208. Jalen's throat tightened again. 52 minutes. Whatever was coming, it was coming soon. He whispered, "Okay, we're safer here, but we need a plan, and we need to know what that countdown is." Syra stared at him, then lifted her wrist so he could see the black bracelet. She tapped it once with a small finger. The device flickered. Then, impossibly, a tiny projection of symbols bloomed above it, faint and shimmering, like a hologram made from dust and light. Jalen blinked. The symbols were not his language, but he recognized one shape, a universal icon used across stations and ships. A docking ring, then an icon that looked like a door, then a symbol like a wave, spreading outward, then a red warning triangle. Jalen felt his stomach twist. A wave, a warning, a door, a docking ring. He whispered, "Is it going to open something? Is it going to, what? Trigger an alarm, trigger a beacon?" Syra's eyes filled, and she shook her head quickly, like no, worse. She pressed her palm over the bracelet as if trying to stop it. Then she made that musical tone again, longer, and the air in the alcove vibrated. The metal panel beside them trembled. The blue sphere between her hands brightened in response, and the hologram changed. Now it showed the docking ring icon, and next to it, a shape like a ship, and beside that, a cluster of dots, like people, like targets. Then a line, then a bright flash. Jalen's breath stopped. A timed event, linked to the transit ring, linked to people. His mind raced. Someone put a device on a child and started a countdown, and it ends with a flash in a crowded ring. No, not just an alarm. A disaster. A bomb, a breach, an energy pulse, something catastrophic that could tear open a corridor, vent atmosphere, kill hundreds, thousands, and the child was the key to it. Jalen's hands shook. He forced them still. He looked at Syra, really looked. This little girl was not hiding because she was lost. She was hiding because she was a weapon someone tried to use, and she was trying to run from what they made her into. Jalen's voice dropped into something fierce. Syra, listen to me. I don't know who did this, but I am not letting them use you. Do you hear me? I am not letting them. Syra's eyes widened at his intensity. Then her face crumpled with relief, and she made a small sound that was half sob and half breath. The blue sphere trembled, and a few sparks of electric blue danced between her fingers. Jalen reached out slowly, not to touch her, but to steady the towel around her shoulders. He spoke carefully, like each word mattered. Can you remove it? Can you take it off? Syra shook her head again, more desperate now, and she pointed at the bracelet latch, a seamless ring with no visible opening. Then she held up her wrist to show the bruised marks again, and she made a sound like pain. Jalen swallowed hard. Locked. He stared at the matte black band, and noticed a tiny mark on the underside, like a sealed port, like a maintenance access only certain tools could open. His janitor brain, the part that understood station hardware, clicked into place. This bracelet was built like station equipment, not jewelry, which meant the station might have a way to open it, because the station always had a way to open its own locks. Jalen's eyes darted to the wall panel beside them, a maintenance access plate with a tool port. He had a general utility key on his belt, basic access, nothing high level. But janitors had another kind of access. Knowledge. He whispered. There's a tech bay on this spine, old one, the kind security doesn't visit because it smells like oil and broken dreams. If there's a tool to open that thing, it might be there, but we have to move fast, and we have to avoid the main cameras. Cyrus stared at him, then nodded, clutching the blue sphere close. Jalen closed the bin again, leaving her breathing gap, and started pushing. As he moved, he listened for footsteps behind them, for radio chatter, for the sudden sharp sound of boots that meant security had decided to stop ignoring janitors. He passed a junction where a screen displayed station alerts. A flashing banner. Missing non-human minor. Last seen near transit ring. Report immediately. Jalen's jaw tightened. So it was official now, and it was everywhere. He turned into a side tunnel and nearly collided with a maintenance crewman carrying a coil of cable. The crewman swore, then looked at Jalen's cart. Jalen forced a tired laugh. He grabbed the radio, thumbed the channel. Mira, he whispered. Mira, if you can hear me, it's Jalen Voss. I need you now. This is not a drill. Static crackled. Then a voice, irritated, tired. Jalen, what is it? I'm in the middle of a coolant leak. Mira, listen, he said, voice shaking. I have a child with me, non-human. She's wearing a restraint device with a countdown. I tried to stop it, and it triggered a 10-minute timer. I need supervisor authorization to access the disengagement protocols. I need it right now. There was silence on the channel, the kind of silence where a person decides if they believe you or if they protect themselves by pretending they didn't hear. Then Myra's voice dropped, suddenly sharp. Where are you? Service Utilities Bay on Spine C, Jalen said, and Mira, security is searching for her. They want her. Another pause. Then, Myra's voice changed into something Jalen had never heard from her. Fear. Stay there, she said. I'm coming. And Jalen, do not. Move her toward the transit ring. Do not. Jalen swallowed. I won't. He glanced at Syra, who was shaking now, hugging herself, the blue sphere flickering like a candle in wind. The bracelet showed 000841, 000840. Jalen knelt beside her and spoke softly, steady, like a father even though he wasn't one. Syra, I'm here, okay? I'm here, you're not alone. Nobody is taking you. Not while I'm breathing. Cyrus stared at him, and a tear slid down her smooth lavender cheek, catching the blue light. She lifted her small hands and pushed the blue sphere gently toward him, as if offering him her only weapon, her only trust. Jalen's eyes burned. He did not take it. He just placed his hand near it, feeling its warmth, feeling the hum. "Thank you," he whispered. "Keep it, you might need it." Footsteps echoed outside the tech bay. Heavy, purposeful. Jalen froze. The door handle rattled slightly. Someone tried it, found it mostly shut. Then the door began to open. Jalen's blood turned to ice. A security officer stepped in, scanning. Then another. Then a third behind them. Their eyes were sharp, hunting. Jalen forced his body to rise slowly, to look tired, to look harmless. "Evening, sirs," he said, "just restocking supplies." The lead officer's gaze snapped to the cart, to the bin, to the towels. Jalen's mouth went dry. The officer stepped closer. "We have a station-wide alert," he said. "Missing non-human miner. Last seen near transit ring. You've been in maintenance corridors. You see anything?" Jalen kept his face blank. "No, sir," he said, "just cleaning." The officer's eyes narrowed. He moved toward the cart. Jalen's heart hammered. The bracelet ticked inside the bin. 000612. 000611. The officer reached for the bin lid. And Syra, terrified, unable to help it, let the blue sphere flare. The light burst through the towel, seems like a sudden sunrise. The officer jerked back. "What the hell?" Jalen's voice snapped, louder than he meant. "Stop." The word echoed off the metal walls. The officer's hands moved to their weapons. Jalen felt time stretch thin. He threw himself between them and the cart, arms out. "She's a child," he said, voice shaking with fury. "You want to point guns at a child?" The lead officer's eyes went cold. "Step aside. Worker," he said, "that is not a child. That is evidence. And you are interfering with a security operation." Jalen's fists clenched. Behind him, the blue glow throbbed, Cyrus' fears spilling into light. And then another voice filled the doorway, sharp as a blade. "Back off." Mira Cade stood there, breathless, hair pulled back, grease on her cheek, but her eyes were steel. The lead officer turned. "Maintenance lead," he said, "this is security jurisdiction." Mira stepped in, holding up her supervisor badge and an authorization chip, her voice steady. "That bay is under maintenance control, and I have reason to believe you are about to trigger a catastrophic device failure. If you fire in here, you could set it off, and if you touch her without proper disengagement protocol, you could set it off." The officer's jaw tightened. "We're authorized," he snapped. Myra's gaze locked on him. "Then show me the order that says you're authorized to endanger a transit ring," she said, "because I just got a silent maintenance ping, abnormal device signal, spine C, and if this goes wrong, the station loses a corridor, maybe loses atmosphere, and the board will bury you under the wreckage." The officer hesitated, just long enough for Jalen to feel hope. Mira looked at Jalen, and her eyes softened for one heartbeat. Then she turned to the terminal, slapped her authorization chip into the slot. The screen changed, access granted. Myra's fingers moved fast, pulling up protocols, scanning device signatures. Her face paled. "Oh no," she whispered. Jalen's stomach dropped. "What?" Mira looked at him, voice low. "This bracelet, it's not a bomb in the simple sense. It's a keyed gate. It's designed to open a micro breach at the transit ring bulkhead, a pulse gate. If it opens, atmosphere vents, pressure changes, people die, and then whoever planned it blames station maintenance, or blames the alien, or blames anyone but themselves." The lead officer's eyes sharpened. "Open it," he ordered. "Now." Mira ignored him, her voice turning fierce. "Jalen, get her wrist out. I need line of sight. I need to confirm the port." Jalen nodded, hands shaking, and opened the bin. Cyrus' eyes were huge, her body trembling. Jalen lifted her gently, brought her close, shielding her with his body. Mira leaned in, scanned the bracelet with a handheld reader from the kit, her eyes darting. "Timer shows," she whispered, 000319, 000318. Myra's breath hitched. "There's a kill lock," she said. "It's keyed to a location signal. If she crosses into the transit ring boundary, it triggers instantly, and if the device senses forced removal without a code, it triggers a shortened pulse right where she stands." The lead officer's face changed, just slightly, like the truth was inconvenient. Then his voice turned hard. So we take her to the ring, and we finish it, he said. Jalen stared. Finish it. Myra's eyes snapped to the officer. Are you insane? The officer's hand moved toward his sidearm. Orders, he said. You don't know what you're dealing with. Jalen's body moved before his mind could. He stepped back with Syra, turning toward the rear service hatch that led deeper into maintenance. Myra's voice rose, sharp, commanding. Jalen, go now. The officer lunged forward. Jalen felt Cyrus' arms tighten around his neck. The blue sphere flared, and the air in the bay trembled. Tools rattled, lights flickered. Jalen ran. He pushed through the rear hatch into a narrow service tunnel, boots pounding, cart left behind, job left behind, life left behind. Behind him, security shouted, boots chased. Myra's voice echoed once, then cut off in radio static. Jalen sprinted through the service tunnel with Syra in his arms, her lavender skin pressed against his chest, her heartbeat fast and light. The bracelet timer ticked. 000210. 000209. Jalen's mind screamed for a solution. He knew the station, he knew its bones. There was one place people avoided, one place even security didn't like to enter because it was too close to the edge of nothing. The waste ejection bay. A chamber designed to vent refuse pods into space, a controlled airlock with thick doors and emergency seals. If the device triggered a breach pulse, better it happen in a chamber built to vent, not in a populated corridor. Jalen turned hard at the next junction, nearly slammed into a wall, kept going. Behind him, boots gained. Syra lifted her wrist, her eyes on him, pleading, afraid, and she made that musical tone again, stronger, and Jalen felt the station respond, felt panels vibrate, felt lights dim for a fraction. The bracelet display flickered, as if confused by her voice. 000121. 000120. Jalen burst into the waste bay antechamber, slapped the emergency lock. The door behind him slid shut with a heavy thud. A red light flashed. Lockdown engaged. Jalen panted, chest heaving. The chamber ahead was larger, industrial, metal floors with drain grooves, thick bulkhead doors, and the faint smell of old chemicals. He set Syra down gently, knelt in front of her, and held her shoulders. Syra, listen, I need you to do something very brave, okay? I need you to focus that blue light, not to hurt anyone, but to confuse the bracelet, to slow it. Can you? Syra's eyes were wet, but she nodded, jaw tight. She cupped her hands, the blue sphere brightened, and the air hummed, like the room had become an instrument and she was playing it. Jalen grabbed the probe and override pin from the kit still in his pocket. He had snatched them instinctively when he ran, and he pressed them again to the bracelet. The device vibrated violently. The timer hit. 000030. 000029. Jalen's hands shook so hard, he almost dropped the pin. He forced himself steady. He thought of his mother's voice, calm in storms. Slow hands, Jalen, slow hands save lives. He pressed the pin deeper, felt resistance, pushed past it. The blue light surged. Syra cried out, not in pain, but in effort, and the metal walls rang with her tone. The bracelet display glitched. Numbers scrambled. Then the display flashed a new symbol. A door opening. A wave. But the wave icon flickered, unstable. Jalen screamed, voice raw. Hold it, Syra, hold it. Syra's eyes squeezed shut, her face twisting with strain, and the blue sphere expanded, forming a thin shell of light around her wrist, like a shield. Jalen felt heat on his fingers, felt the bracelet fight him. 000005. 000004. Jalen shoved the pin with every ounce of strength. A sharp click, louder than before. The bracelet split along a hidden seam. It did not explode, it did not flash, it did not pulse. It fell open into two halves in Jalen's hands. The countdown vanished. The red warning triangle died, and the room's hum faded like a breath released. For one long second, everything was silent except Jalen's ragged breathing. Then Syra's body sagged, and she collapsed forward into Jalen's chest. Jalen caught her, held her tight, and he felt his own tears come hot and sudden. "You're okay?" he whispered. "You're okay, you're okay?" Syra clung to him, shaking, her blue light dimming until it was a soft glow against his shirt. Outside the chamber, The lockdown doors shook with pounding, distant shouts muffled by steel. Jalen lifted Syra into his arms again and looked around the waste bay. There was an emergency exit corridor that led to a maintenance lift, and from there, to a hidden access route toward docking, toward ships that left, toward freedom if they could find the right one. But Jalen knew something else now. This wasn't just a lost child. This was a plan, a weapon, a conspiracy on his station. And people in uniforms were part of it. Jalen tightened his grip on Syra and spoke softly, voice turning into iron. Syra, we're going to get you out of here, and then we're going to find out who did this, and we're going to make sure they never touch another child again. Syra lifted her face from his shoulder, eyes still wet, but now there was something new there. Hope, small, fragile, but real. She raised her hand, and the blue glow gathered into a tiny sphere again, calm now, obedient, like a light that trusted its owner again. Then she reached up and touched Jalen's cheek with lavender fingers, a gentle gesture that felt like gratitude and a promise. Jalen swallowed hard. He turned toward the emergency corridor, stepping forward into the dim industrial light, into the unknown, into the kind of fight janitors were never supposed to be part of. Behind him, security pounded and shouted. Ahead of him, the station's endless tunnels waited. And in his arms, the child who had been turned into a countdown finally breathed like a child again. Jalen whispered one word, not to the station, not to security, but to himself. Now.